All right. I call the June 12th, 2025 meeting of the Architectural Review Board to order. To begin the meeting, we have to go over a couple motions. The first motion is we need to vote on the audibility of any remote board members who are participating in the meeting. I have to verify that each board member participating remotely, the remote participant's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for the meeting room. Confirmation of their location and that their remote participation comports with the policy. Board member Mangum, can you please state for the record your location and the reason you are participating remotely?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Zellman. My name is Rachel Mangum. I am participating from my home in Fairfax County. I was not able to attend in person because I had a late meeting for my work or primary job that I would not have been able to make it to the government center in time, so I am joining remotely.
Okay, is there a motion? Mr. Plumpy? There's that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's unusual.
Mr. Chairman, I move.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board member, Megan, can be clearly heard and that her remote participation comports with the policy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. We also need to vote on public comment time limitations. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during the public comment periods. Public will be allowed to comment after the consent agenda items and after each action item is standard ARB practice. Is there a motion?
Sure.
Mr. Plumpy?
Go down now. I move that each member of the public have 3 minutes to speak.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Wong. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. As is standard ARB practice, we read the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts at the beginning of our meeting, and Mr. Plumpy has kindly agreed to read the statement this evening.
Sure thing. Statement of purpose and intent of the historical overlay districts. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public for the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachments upon such areas, structures, and premises to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, and political, architectural, and archaeological heritage of the county. To prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to ensure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Plumpy. The order in which items will be heard will be set at the meeting. Additional items may be added to the agenda at the discretion of the chair. Applicants for initial or follow-up presentations will mail drawings and other documentation as appropriate to the ARB prior to the meeting in which a project will be reviewed. If members have not received such documentation, the application may be postponed until a subsequent meeting. That being stated, I would entertain a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend or alter, make a motion to move the 2 workshop items to action items.
Okay.
Do I need to say those numbers? Okay. ARBWK-2025-MV-00013, 2007 Martha's Road storm drainage repairs. And ARB-MV-2014-2207 Martha's Road storm drainage repairs.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Hammack. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion carries. The agenda will be so amended and heard in that order. I would ask all applicants to please limit project presentations to 8 minutes for our first submission and 3 minutes for resubmission. That does not include our questions. We will ask questions that will not count against that time. Denise, are there any introductions or recognition of guests?
I just wanted to recognize that Dr. Elizabeth Kroll has joined us remotely, and she is here in support of the Centerville presentation at the end of the meeting.
Very good. All right, that brings us to our consent calendar action items. First is ARB 2025-DR-00022, 1093 South Street Special Permit in Herndon, tax map 0063120016 in the Drainsville Tavern Historic Overlay District. Applicants propose to increase licensed family home daycare from a 7-child state license to 12 children. And is there a representative for that application? Sir, you can go up to the podium. Okay. Thank you, sir. No presentation?
This is just a,
Consent.
yeah, it's a consent.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Is there any discussion from the board? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Plumpy.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB recommend for approval item ARB 2025-DR-00022 located at 1093 Safa Street, Herndon, tax map 0063120016 in the Drainsville Tavern Historical District for the special permit application for an increased license for a family home daycare from 7 children to 12 children as submitted. Good luck.
Now it goes on to the next page.
Okay, I'm sorry. And presented at the June 12, 2025 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB 2025-DR-00022 as approved by the ARB on June 12, 2025. Upon review of these materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay District.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Petty. She just beat you, Ms. Mangum, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Opposed? Opposed?
Abstain.
And Mr. Kowinski abstains. Thank you. Thank you, sir. That's approved. You have a good evening. That brings us to our second consent item, which is ARB 2025 SU 00025 13890 Low Street Ferguson sign permit. The applicant is proposing to replace one wall sign mounted on the building located within the HOD and re-sleeving an existing freestanding monument ground sign located outside the boundary of the HOD. Any discussion on this one from the board? If not, I will entertain a motion. Ms. Hammond.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve item ARB-2025-SU-00025 located at 13890 Low Street. Am I saying that right? Low Street, Chantilly, tax map 0342-01001 7E in the Sully HOD for the proposed replacement of one wall sign as submitted and presented at the June 12, 2025 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB-2025-SU-00025 as approved by the ARB on June 12, 2025. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101-Historic Overlay Districts.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, that brings us into our items for action. First is ARB 2025 SU 00020, 13814 Route 29 Lucky Strike sign permit located in the Centerville Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to install 2 new wall-mounted signs and reface one existing pylon sign with the new name Lucky Strike. Ken Padgett represents the application.
I'm here.
Thank you, sir. You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to seek approval for the replacement of signage on the subject property at 13814 Route 29. This is a rebranding of an existing bowling center. You want to advance the slides? This is kind of an aerial site plan overview. Sign A and B are both wall-mounted signs, and sign C is a freestanding pylon sign that we're proposing to reface to update the branding. Next slide, please. This is our existing, is the top frame of the photo. There's a bowling sign on the far left-hand side of the building, and centered over the doorway is a Bolero sign, which is the current brand. It's being rebranded as a Lucky Strike Bowling Center, and this bottom frame represents the new rendering. The bowling sign will be removed from the left portion of that elevation, and it'll be replaced with just a Lucky Strike sign centered over the door. Next frame. This shows the details of the sign. It's internally illuminated LED, as is the existing sign on the building. The sign's approximately 104 square feet. Next frame. This is our side elevation of the building. Again, the top frame is existing. It has a sign on the right side of that just says bowl. We're going to replace it with the corporate branding that says Lucky Strike. Next frame. Again, this is an internally illuminated sign. It's illuminated with LED, and it's approximately 41 square feet. Next frame. This is a before and after of the existing freestanding pylon sign that's out at the property, and it's just going to get refaced with the new branding. And I believe that's the last frame of our presentation. This is the cut sheet details on that sign face. It's an acrylic face, and it's internally illuminated with fluorescent tubes. And that should conclude our presentation.
Thank you, sir. Any members of the public wish to comment on this application? Members of the board, comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I
Ms. Moore.
move that the ARB approve action item ARB 2025 issue 00020 located at 13814 Route 29 Centerville. Tax map 0544010026A in the Centerville HOD for the proposed installation of 2 new wall-mounted signs and reface 1 existing pylon sign as submitted and presented at the June 12, 2025 ARB meeting. The application must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB 2045 issue 00020 as approved by the ARB on June 12, 2025. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Is there a second? Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Paget. Have a
On
good
behalf of
evening.
my client, we'd like to thank the members of the board and supporting staff from Fairfax County for your time this evening.
Yes, sir. Have a good evening.
You as well.
Thank you. That brings us to our second item for action, ARB 2025 MV 00024 7209 Beechwood Road, the Hewitt Wolf addition. The applicant is proposing a new 2-story rear addition. Ms. Kelly represents the application. Ms. Kelly, you have the floor.
No, you have to read the Hills.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Burns is
No.
standing first. Yes, Mr. Burns, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I, John Burns, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. I specifically state the following for the June 12, 2025 ARB meeting. Although it is the opinion of the county's attorney's office that generally I am not legally required to make a formal disclosure statement before reviewing ARB cases in Holland Hills, I am making this statement in the interest of transparency and to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. I own and reside in a home in the Holland Hills HOD. The properties under consideration tonight are not adjacent to or visible from my property. I have not worked with or received a gift or benefit from anyone associated with these projects. Accordingly, I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Ms. Kelly.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christine Kelly, the architect for the addition, and I'm here with the owners, Kate Hewitt and Greg Wolf, and we've also invited our contractor, Paulo de la Vieira, so he can see what these meetings are all about. We've been through 2 workshops. This is our final. We've lowered the second-story addition. We've created an overhang at the second floor to break up the wall that you had concerns about, and we reduced windows, and we're here tonight to present the final for approval. May I have the next slide, please? On the right is the plat showing you where the 2-story addition is with the 1-story addition for just to recap, the bathroom at the back. We're within the allowable setbacks for our area. Next slide, please. To take you around the property very quickly, the house sits a little bit up off the road. It is not very, very visible. It's hidden by a lot of trees. The next slide, please. And a few more photos taking you around the house, the existing chimney, and the next slide, please. And then the hours are showing you where the addition is sitting adjacent to the existing house. In this area, we'll be doing a ground level deck. Next slide, please. And just to give you, just to recap to show you the photos, the arrows show you where the addition will be going. And the next slide, please. We are proposing Marvin windows and box gutters. One change that we have made since the last presentation is the existing house has tongue and groove cedar siding. We would like to request the board approve T111 siding. It's something that the clients would like. It's easier to maintain, and it's a look that they like for the house. And the other change we have is we're also proposing a brick foundation. On the previous design, we had a parched block foundation. On this one, we have a brick foundation. The next slide, please. This is the existing 1-story, 2-bedroom house. The next slide, please. This shows the new addition at the back, which is the primary bedroom, a laundry room, and the master bathroom. And you can see the ground level deck here. And the next slide, please, is the second story, which is a guest bedroom, flexible office space, as well as another bathroom. And the next slide, please. The roof plan with the shed roof on the second floor, and then the gable roof at the back. Bathroom and the existing gable roof of the main house. The next slide, please. These elevations show the west side where we have the overhang to break up that west elevation that was originally a concern for the board. And then the south, which is the front elevation, we added the clear story windows, which also was a suggestion by the board. And you can see where we're proposing the T111 siding. Next slide, please. Taking you around to the east side, which faces the neighbors. We've also had a preliminary approval with our with the DRC board, and we will be screening these units from the neighbor to help reduce noise and just a visual effect for them. And then coming around to the back, we have windows overlooking the rear wooded part of the property, and then the 1-story bathroom addition. The next slide, please. Interior elevations and building section. This is where we lowered the height of the addition. The back plate height is at 7 feet. The next slide, please. Our lighting plan, the only exterior lighting we're proposing right now would be recessed lighting in the small overhang at the second level. And the next slide, please. The lighting plan for the upper level studio guest bedroom. And the next slide, please. Or our foundation and structural plans are the next. The next slide, please. The framing, and then the last slide is the roof framing plan. Be happy to answer questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? Seeing none, members of the board, comments or questions? Mr. Kalinsky.
I missed the last workshop. I was there for the prior workshop, and what I see here is well developed. The scale, the proportions, the ratio of mass to glass, all that seems to have been greatly improved. So I think that the two workshops have helped us get there. Plus your design talents to get there. I mean, I'm happy to see this approved.
Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Burns.
Yes, I thank you and your client for listening very carefully to the feedback that you got from the board, and I see that manifested in the final set of drawings. I think that the small overhang on the second level breaks up the massing that was a concern that we expressed, and plus I think the benefit is you get a slightly larger room upstairs. So you gain a few square feet, and so I think that's all for the good. I would support this.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Any other questions or comments from board members? Ms. Hammack.
I think the brick foundation is an improvement over Parge. Just to comment on that changing. Except maybe I'm wrong.
No. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, thank you for bringing up the changes that she highlighted. The use of T111, I'm okay with that. It's different, but one of the things that we look at in addition is it's nice to be able to differentiate it from the original. Mm-hmm. And so that subtle change of material will differentiate this construction from the historic construction of the original house. And so I think that's okay as well.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Kalinsky.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 2025 MV 00024 located at 7209 Beechwood Road, Alexandria, tax map 0933040209, Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed new two-story rear addition as submitted and presented at the June 12, 2025 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB 2025 MV 00024 as approved by the ARB on June 12, 2025. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay District.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Thank you. Have a good evening. Good luck. That brings us to our third item for action, which is ARB 2025 MV 00021 8787 Milltown's Court solar installation from the Woodlawn Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the installation of 3.87 kilowatt addition circuits for 9 solar panels on an existing residential roof. Ion Developer LLC represents the application.
Could we amend the agenda and move it to the end?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
I can't make that motion.
I make the motion that we give the applicant an opportunity to attend this meeting and we move ARB-2025-MV-00021 8787 Milltown's Court solar installation to the end of the agenda to be after we hear the 2207 Martha Road cases that we moved from workshop.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item action number 3 will be moved to the end of the agenda. That moves us to item action number 4, ARB 2025 MV 00019 9502 Workhouse Way, glass blowing studio renovation in the Ward Laurel Hill MOA eligible district. And Ms. Savoca represents the application.
Actually, she could not attend.
Okay.
I'll be.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Jim Colhamus. I'm an architect representing the AE team, and Jim is a mechanical engineer on the team as well for technical questions. And in support, we have some Fairfax County project manager and some of the workhouse folks as well in support. So without further ado, I guess we can get right into it.
Yes, sir.
So that if you're familiar with the workhouse art facility in Lorton. Next, please. So specifically, we are a small infill, an existing infill project. It's called the 7A building. And this project is going to convert that existing space into a new glass blowing studio with a lot of, well, all new equipment, all new glass blowing equipment, which is of course very robust energy and heat usage. Next. So this is just a blow up. It's the connector. It's a small connector building. It was infilled. It's not original, but it was done decades ago. But it's existing, and there's just two of these. There's the W9, which is further down, did something similar, and then this one. So there's not a precedent. There's just a few of these infill buildings, and this is one of the two. So this is just a blow-up of the actual plan. All the equipment, if you look at the left-hand plan, all the equipment is going to be on the south side, behind a new wall, and the rest is open working space, a new restroom in the back. On the left is the roof plan. It's really the thing in question, and that's where we've located the new mechanical equipment. There's fans and there's some large rooftop units to serve what is a large air demand for this project. And we've provided the dimensions and the variances there. Next, please. So this is an existing view of the space from the quad, and we are not altering anything at this pedestrian level. I think we're going to be adding a couple of convenience outlets, but that's it. Other than that, everything is going to be left intact. Next. So what you're seeing here is from the quad on the left, you see the units beyond the roof line. The one on the left is sort of, if you're inside the arcade, looking at the full wall, you can see that the only changes we've made are adding a couple of outlets. Next. This is the rear of this is existing, the rear elevation. It is not in great shape, but for context, we're going to be repointing the brick with mortar to match, and that little louver that you see in the upper right-hand corner is going to be removed because mechanically it's no longer needed. It's going to be removed and infilled with brick to match existing, and the trim boards are going to be replaced with new wood and painted to match as well. And that's just describing what I just indicated is going to be the new work. So this is a sightline study, and what you're seeing at the top is the person in the quad. That's about a 5-foot eye level. That's the point at which you could begin to see the new unit if it was on. Well, let me back up. The one on the bottom is the unit is on a large. The new unit would be on a larger curb. The current Fairfax standard is 18 inches, And we would like to seek an exception to do 8, which is all we would actually need from a flashing and constructability perspective. And because sightlines are important here, we're going to be looking for that. But we're showing both so that you can see the difference. But so if we're ultimately allowed to do the 8-inch, that person is where you would begin to just barely start to see it. And as you moved to the left, plan left, you would continue to just start to see it a little bit more as you went all the way over to the arcade. Again, these are just right from our Revit model. These are just sections. You can kind of see that the arcade itself has its own roof, which is good because that does cut off the sight lines quite a bit. We're not altering any of that. We're not altering the roof slope or anything like that. But one of the things that's important here is the roof slope, the very shallow shed roof slope over this space. What it does geometrically is that unit, regardless of where it lives on that shed, it presents itself very similarly from the quad side because it's such a shallow slope. So if it was steeper and we could move it back a little bit, it would make a big difference. In this case, it doesn't. The other important, well, let me back up one. So the other important thing is there is an existing steel beam, structural steel beam that splits the existing space, and the roof is supported one side or the other. We are balancing these units atop that beam, and the ducts are on both sides of the beam. That's important because that beam is taking most of the load of these units. And we looked at we did a lot of due diligence here with reorganizing and seeing if we could move the unit further back. The problem is that there's a series of negative consequences when this thing is moved significantly back. And one of them is structural. We would have to significantly alter the framing of the existing roof to accommodate those large units if they were not over the beam. Next. And so on the left is existing. There is an existing rooftop unit now that will be removed. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning. That's the existing unit. In the middle is the 2 new units, and on the right is the other. I mentioned there were 2 of these infill buildings. That's the W9 that also has an existing unit that also presents itself at that height. So for comparison, that's what we're looking at. And so this is just sort of laying out some of the considerations as to why the units are located where they're located. And the first is structural. And Jim, I don't know if you want to weigh in. Please do if you want to weigh in at any time, or Eileen or anybody. But basically, the units are going to require maintenance, and the closer they get to the roof's edge is also a concern. We have tie-offs up there. Right now, they're sort of safely centered in the middle of the roof. As they start to move towards the edge, we then have issues there with maintenance and safety and maintainability access. The construction costs and schedule impacts to the workhouse, moving the units does add cost, and others can talk about the specifics on that, but we've done the study, and it would add cost, especially because of the structural changes. And then we talked about safety and maintenance, and yeah, and so really it's maintainability, very modest gains if the units were to move further towards the edge because of the geometry. So structural costs, safety, and minimal gains for moving. But we did look at it closely. Next, please. And then this is just a rendering from the far side from the arcade, approximately, a 5-foot set of eyes. Another angle. That's the existing condition. You can, again, just barely see the unit that's there now. And then just the technical of that unit itself. And if there's any technical questions, I'm going to defer to Jim.
Yes, sir.
Next, please. Well, I guess the previous was the workhouse provided their own endorsement, and that's what that is. You read through that. And then next, please. And really, the rest is just the actual drawing set. I don't think we necessarily need to go through it. If we certainly can, if you'd like, but it's just all of the, all the backup.
If we have comments and questions, we can go
Sure.
through it if necessary.
Yeah. So with that, happy to field questions.
Thank you, sir. Any members of the public who wish to comment on this? Bless you.
That is not a comment. Can everyone hear me okay without coming up to the podium? I'm Sharon Bulova. I used to be Sharon Bulova, County Board of Supervisor, and now I'm on the Workhouse Board, Foundation Board. I just would like to speak in favor of, of this change. There are some really exciting changes that are coming to and being made at the workhouse. And this is one of them, and it really is a jewel in the crown, so to speak. It allows us to have a hot shop, and actually we're among the only in the East Coast to be able to have a facility like this, but we need to vent it. So it's, it's a practical, if we're going to have something like that, we need to be able to, to vent the use, and that's what this is all about. So anyway, I'll let some of the other professionals here have a...
Hi everyone, my name is Ian Schmidt. I'm the Director of Glass and Ceramics. You saw me last year here presenting for the ceramics program, now I'm for my glass program. Just to speak to what we're building here, this is going to be a really unique space here in Fairfax County. As Sharon is alluding to, we will be the only glass studio in Northern Virginia. This facility has had a 32% increase in attendance in the last year. We've raised our income, we're teaching more classes, we're collaborating with universities. We're really looking to grow a program that's pretty unique in the art space, as well as meeting some of the demands of the space to transform it in a reuse project. This has been sitting, was brought on with the specific goal of doing this. We've done 3 hot shops, so this will be my 4th, so I'm really excited for this to happen, and I just want to voice my support. We've done a lot to meet some of the demands of reducing the capacity of the hot shop and lower the needs a little bit, and try and really meet the needs of the county where we can. So we're trying to collaborate as much as possible, and just want to thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. All right, not seeing any other comments, I'll turn it over to questions and comments from the board. Ms. Hammond.
Hi, I don't have any major concerns, but I just have some questions. The photo that you showed us showing existing conditions, was the person that took that photo over 5 feet?
Let's go to the photo. Which photo?
Towards the end. We were standing under the arcade looking back. Towards the end of the
I believe I took that photo.
Okay. Okay. I like,
Either Eileen or Emily.
yeah,
They're
I like sight lines because in your sight, I think in the future, I like sight lines to be done from 6 feet tall, not 5 feet. But anyway. My other question was, you don't need a ladder to access and maintain how does the maintenance worker get to the units to maintain them?
They do use a ladder, they currently use a ladder to get up to that roof, and they would continue
But
to,
it's not a permanent ladder? It's just
not a permanent
No,
ladder.
Okay.
It's on the backside.
Okay, all right. You mentioned something about asking for permission to have a lower curb. Can you clarify that? Are you talking about the
The
dunnage?
equipment curb, so the piece of equipment
It sits on
sits
steel?
on a
Yeah, I call that
sort of a
dunnage.
prefabricated curb.
Okay,
And the Fairfax guidelines call for 18 inches, which in a perfect world is great. Snow can build up against it, and it's ideal if you have that luxury. In this case, we don't need, from a roofing standpoint, we don't need it to be 18 inches. And if the county will allow, we can get that
is
exception.
that something that the county, you think they'll allow?
I think we have a very good case in this. Yeah, I do.
And then, my last question is, do these units make more sound than the average? I don't know.
James, you can probably jump in on that.
So the existing unit is a single unit, we're doubling them. The way that sound works is actually measured logarithmically. So by increasing a small amount, by doubling it, you wouldn't increase the noise level substantially. These units are larger, so they will be slightly louder. Though the roof section is, as a mechanical engineer, is kind of wonky. There's an angled piece there over top of the arcade, which also will help to prevent that sound from escaping.
Okay. I think you've been very thoughtful. I appreciate you walking us through all the scenarios that you thought of. So I appreciate that.
Other questions and comments? Mr. Kalinsky?
More of a housekeeping comment here. The drawings that we're seeing presented here are not the same as what was in our package, at least what I re-downloaded today. And I don't see the construction documents, which typically is what we're looking for. I see that you offer them up here, but we don't have them. Is that something that's available to us and I missed? Or?
It certainly can be. I'm not sure what was downloaded.
So there was a second package that came yesterday, that I sent out yesterday, and it should be in the Ignite folder.
Is there?
Is there?
In the supplement.
Yeah, it's called supplemental.
Okay, well,
Mr. Kalinsky?
then my fault. Sorry.
No.
That's why
Yep.
I re-downloaded everything today, the entire thing, but I did not see it, maybe.
I think it's called supplemental.
Okay, that's, again, housekeeping, thank you. Sorry for
No problem. Other questions and comments? Ms. Huang?
So this is to a really big unit, and of course, we all try not to seeing it. So my question here is, this infill space, are they built as the same campus at the same time, or it was built slightly later of the time?
When was the infill built? Well, I don't know that we have an exact date because there's not existing like original construction. I think a lot of these buildings were built by the inmates, quite frankly. And so I don't think we have a date, but the nature of how ordered that space is, and then you have these two anomalies, they clearly came after at some point. We just don't know. It could have been the 1930s. The originals were the 1920s and teens, but I would say at least a decade later.
Part of me really wanted to try to see if we can push the machine a little bit further into that courtyard, and that's why I was trying to understand the significance of that infill building. But I do know you have studied that, and what I was hoping to see that comparison including in the package. Not that I don't think that's not significant enough, just because we have more backup that. can do an informed decision. That's just a comment, not really a question.
I'm sorry, to answer your question, this was built between 1953 and 1960.
Oh, it was that late, 53 to 60.
I do see change.
Ms. Wong, are you good?
I think I'm
Okay.
good.
All right, I'm going to recognize myself to make a comment. I recognize this to be an industrial space, and so the mechanical showing is not as big of a deal to me. I also am happy to hear that we're getting more participation on site, and so I want to be practical in how we can continue to get more participation on site. So for me personally, I'm supportive of the project and appreciate the efforts you put into it. Mr. Mulvey.
Yes, I want to thank the applicants. I did meet with them individually via Zoom with Denise, the architect, and and her as well from the county. And I had some concerns, similar that were around the table that Ms. Hong said. And we worked it out. I spent 45 minutes. I said, can we move it around, just like you said, behind the site and all that stuff. So you did well. And the biggest thing I see that came out of that conversation is you change the color so it goes more blends in with the shingles. I think the first thing I saw was a little bit lighter in color. So I think it's a home run what you guys did.
Yeah, this is the
The old, yes, perfect. So thank you so much. So I thank you for listening, and we worked it out, rolled up the sleeves, and worked out fine. I think I do really appreciate that this will help out. I'm on the board as well. I will recuse myself from voting, abstaining. I'll just say that for the record, because I'm on the board of the workhouse. But I think how we can get more people there is car shows. But this is a good start.
And it is reversible.
Yep.
Right? If you leave the site. We don't want you to, but
It's all.
something preservationists think about.
Sure. Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move
Ms.
that
Orr.
ARB approve action item ARB 2025 MV 00019 located at 9502 Workhouse Way, Lorton, tax map 1064-010058, and the Lorton Laurel Hill MOA eligible district for the renovation of the existing workhouse first floor space W-07A into a glass blowing studio submitted and presented at the June 12, 2025 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB 2025 MV 00019 as approved by the ARB on June 12, 2025. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the Memorandum of Agreement of the Lorton Laurel Hill Eligible District and Zoning Ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay Districts.
Thank you. Is there a second? I saw Ms. Hammack first.
That's right.
All right. All those in favor? Oh, aye. Mr. Burns?
I want to propose a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Can we add please to this motion that the ARB endorses the reduction of the standard curb height from 18 inches to 8 inches and recommend that the county approve that?
Is that acceptable to the mover?
Yes.
And to the seconder?
Yes, good idea.
Thank you.
With that amendment, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes.
All right, one abstention. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Appreciate the consideration.
All right, that brings us to our next item for action, which is ARB 2025 HM 00023 1606 Chimney House Road HVAC installation in the Lake Ann Village Center Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the installation of an HVAC unit on the roof, and the Lake Ann Condominium Association represents the application.
I'm the manager, but they're the owners, so they're going to present it.
Gentlemen, go ahead.
Thank you.
So as the agenda says, this is an application for HVAC on the roof at 1606 Chimney House Road in Lake Ann condominium. The first slide here is our approval from LARCA Lake Ann Reston Condominium Association's board. I think if we go on, we'll probably see, that's the approval from the Reston Association Design Review Board. So both entities have had a chance to review the application and have approved the application. And these are just sort of elevations. This is the back side of the condominium. We're at the top level, and the green is showing everything. This photo is taken by a 6-foot-tall person. 6'4". We'll wait for the next one.
I would add
Well,
that
You are both tall.
when we talk about the front and the back,
it's hard to tell
the
which is
length.
front and which is back.
So,
And this is the the brutalist sculpture in Lake Ann Reston, which we call Child Island because all the children play on it. And I think the next picture is taken from the top of Child Island. So you can see that still that's about 12 foot tall, and you're not seeing anything that's on the roof. And then go on. Okay, this is the front elevation. The front door is just across from the red bench there, and the upper window is our window. And there are several things already on the roof that you can't see at this point. Go ahead. All right, this is the aerial view of Lake Ann. We are, 1606 is right here. And there's like a vent on the roof right now, which can't be seen from below. And the proposed HVAC unit would be about the same height. And the next. All right, and that's just a closer up of the roof, showing the approximate location, which this is the front side, and then the skylight toward the front of the house. And then we'd be putting the unit slightly over the kitchen, which is basically where the electricals are just below. So there would be no wires or anything for the most part showing, just a little bit of conduit most likely. And the next slide. Oops, I guess there should be more pictures. That's the unit that we're proposing putting on the roof itself. And the way we're discussing installing it is with a standard air conditioner pad or HVAC pad that would be used on most installations. The Reston Association recommended that, and the roof has just been replaced on our units, and the roofer also recommended that for better distribution of weight. The contractor's first idea was to put this on 4x4 beams, which we've decided is probably not the best choice to have. And I'm not sure what you'll see if you go through the rest of the slides. You can go through them fairly quickly. There we go. That is a heat pump on the adjacent unit. It, again, can't be seen from the road, and unlike this one, which has the cords and whatnot going through the air shaft, which looks a little dangerous, we would not be doing the very same thing. And then the next slide is just another view of the same. Now that the roof is replaced, we won't have that standing water, but you can see it's on the standard pad there. And so our installation would be very similar and most definitely lower in height. I don't know the measurements of that, but I think we're looking at 42 inches if I have it correct. And yeah, that's just the same. And then that's it. That really is the end. Yeah, that's about all I can say. If you have any technical questions, I can try to answer them. Please, any questions or comments will be great.
Sir, can we get your name for the record?
I'm sorry, it's Stuart Cuddeback Cox. Do you need me to spell that?
Please.
Stuart is S-T-U-A-R-T, and Cuddeback is C-U-D-A-B-A-C-K -C-O-X.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any members of the public wish to comment on this one? All right. Members of the board, questions and comments?
I make a motion to approve. That was a very thoughtful presentation. Appreciate all the photos. Very thorough. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB approve action item ARB-2025-HM-0023, located at 1606 Chimney House Road, Suite 1606, Reston, tax map, 0172311606, in the Lake Ann Village Center HOD. The proposed installation of an HVAC unit on the roof, as submitted and presented at the June 12, 2025 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB-2025-HM-00023, as approved by the ARB on June 12, 2025. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101-historic overlay districts.
Is there a second? Ms. Orr, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you. And I can't go cry. This has been about a 1.5 year long process.
Well, I am very glad.
For extreme weather.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your
Well
evening.
earned approval.
All right, that brings us to our next, items for action, which is ARBW, right now, ARBWK 2025 MV 0013 and 0014.
No, they're,
I'm sorry.
one's the other different types of.
Yeah, I gotcha. ARBWK 2025 MV 0013, 2007 Martha's Road.
Good evening. My name is Matt Bishke. I'm going to let Deborah Lerner, who's the designer on this project, come talk to you guys.
Hi, how are you this evening? We're both with Delaire. We're here on behalf of our clients. I'm sorry that was confusing. We're about to present both items coming up, and the addresses are so similar. It's 2007 and then 2207 Martha's Road. So I don't blame you. It's been confusing in our office as well.
Okay, well, 1 second before you begin, because I want the record to be clear. Which property is the Brusco property?
This is 2007.
That's the Brusco.
Martha's Road, yes, correct. So they're both here, for the same reason, but the scope is slightly different. So obviously we're starting with the 2007. So you may all remember, I'm sure you likely all do remember, that on May 16th, we had this wild storm here in Fairfax County. It lasted all of 10 minutes, at least in the area near Holland Hills. But it wreaked havoc in that neighborhood. There are so many trees there, and this house didn't fare so well in the storm. There was immense damage to the house. And so what we're here today to do is not to propose a new design, what you usually see here. We're here only to talk about repairing what was damaged in the storm. But seeing as we need a building permit to do that, obviously we're going through all the proper motions and steps that we need to do to procure a building permit in an historic neighborhood. So here we are, and what we have for you today, this has all happened so quickly. Obviously, this was just May 16th, and it takes time to get your ducks in a row when you're dealing with insurance and things that you weren't prepared to deal with at a moment's notice. So the plan obviously is to apply for the building permit, but at the moment what we have for you today in workshop are a series of existing photos prior to the storm so that we can show you what the house was, and some photos showing the storm damage. Yes?
Can I get one more clarification?
Please.
Awesome. There had been some thought about moving it to action. If we can, what I would say to members of the board, just so that they're aware, I've had some communications with Mr. Brusco as the chair of the board. And I know that there was the permit application. I know we don't have all the drawings together yet. There is the potential, and I don't know if the applicant is interested in this or not, but something that we could do provisionally, because I know this was a concern of your client, was, you know, weather, animals. We can provisionally approve a temporary closing in until you're able to get drawings and everything and get the building permit. I don't know if that's something the client wants to do or not, but I wanted to give you all that option while you're here before us.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. And, thank you to you for going back and forth with Rye and to Steve and to John for having some conversations with us leading up to this. I think like Deborah said, all of this kind of hit everybody, fell in our lap, proverbial fall. All we really want to do is get to the point of restoring what was there. We've been doing a lot of talking, and I think our perspective is that we don't actually need a building permit to kind of shore up and secure. From my perspective as a builder, especially in Holland Hills where there's a lot of super passionate people, as everybody knows, I'm a little nervous about kind of having my trucks and my guys out there working without a building permit, but I think we feel pretty confident that it's extenuating circumstances, and I think we would have support from the county if someone were to lodge a complaint that we were doing unpermitted work. So if you guys feel like we need that just to kind of temporarily shore and secure, that would be phenomenal. But otherwise, I don't really know that it's necessary or really understand how it would actually work, because we do have this, and for 2007, we did submit the building permit application, and I think this is where the owners got a little bit ahead of themselves, right? I knew that by submitting that application, we were never going to be able to get a full approval to continue to go through the building permit process. We just wanted to have it kind of, set. But there was no chance that we were ever going to be able to have drawings for you guys to approve or for the county to go through the normal LDS process.
Understood. Sounds like it makes sense to keep continuing them as a workshop then, potentially.
Yeah, if you're not going to apply for a building permit to do any kind of closing work, then yeah.
No, I don't think we are. I think we're just going to work over the next couple of weeks to get that complete building permit package like we would have for any other improvement, and just have that submitted ahead of the next meeting, right?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it still is going to take us a couple of weeks to finish construction documents to submit for building permit.
Okay.
And
they don't even have a survey, right?
Yeah. So, and that, by the time that couple of weeks is finished, honestly, that's when we would be submitting documentation back to you for the next ARB meeting. So I think, again, our client is very concerned. If we were in his position, I think we would all be concerned as well. We're obviously very sympathetic, but I think that we sort of understand that, the ARB is not holding up the building permitting process in this situation, that it's going to take time to do it anyway, so we're not super concerned about it.
Okay.
As long as you guys share that view, right? And we just temporarily shore, and of course, it's not going to be, a Holland Hills shoring, right?
Yeah. Well, let me clear one thing up before we proceed then. If we decide to treat these as workshops, which it seems the direction we're going, which is fine, we still have that other action item that we moved to the end. I think we should probably take that up before we go into workshops.
Yeah.
Right? So
May I just say one more thing?
Absolutely.
So the work to 2007 is much more extensive than the work that needs to happen to 207, the next project. And so the circumstances are the same, but the scope of work is different. The destruction to the house is different. And part of me does wonder if the circumstance maybe is different for each house, and I don't know if this is possible or if this interests you or not, but should we maybe do our presentation and then decide what's appropriate, how to treat it? I don't want to hold up progress either, even though we're comfortable moving forward in workshop. If you hear and see what we have to say and you think that it's actually a lot more simple, in the end, then we don't want to hold up progress either. So maybe.
I don't necessarily want to tell you what to do. What I will represent is I think the board would be uncomfortable, and I don't want to, if other board members disagree, please, but with approving something without having the drawings that I think we need for a building permit application. So unless someone disagrees with me on that, which I'm happy to hear,
If you think you can have us everything, we meet in July to January.
Yeah, we're not going to wait that long.
But I would say let's take the action at the next meeting when there's more information.
So therefore, we don't need this workshop tonight on this property, it sounds like.
I mean, I think we could still hear the workshop.
Positive reinforcement to make sure.
Yeah, I think we want to hear what their plan is and the materials and everything still.
We need to call the solar project first to finish
Yeah,
up
I
here.
got you.
Okay.
Mr. Burns.
Steve Polinsky and I met on the site with these folks and the homeowners. And our counsel to them was come to a workshop because they had just enough time to file for a workshop, because I think it will facilitate getting to yes at the July meeting.
Okay.
So the whole idea is
We don't want September.
let's not get to July and have us say, oh, no, that's not really good. Let's find out where the hidden potentials for us rejecting something might be and head them off.
I think the only other way to look at it is whether or not, and I don't know, I think I could probably convince myself both answers would be viable, but whether or not putting back exactly what was there to begin with actually requires this process or not. And so there's like, but that's for you guys to decide. If you think that we don't need to go through the process, then we can just continue with the traditional building permit process.
I mean, that's the argument that
Right.
our client was trying to make with you, I think, over email.
Yeah.
You know, we're still continuing through this process.
Yeah, and so we'll take your guys', view on that one, but.
I think you have to continue through this process. That's not my decision. That's just my understanding about how, there's going to be a building permit. It's in a historic overlay district.
That's right.
Has to come to us, for better or worse.
Yep, okay.
That's the process. But, all right, let me just call this solar project real quick back. ARB 2025 MV 00218787 Milltown Court Solar Installation in the Woodlawn Historic Overlay District. That's a big no. Okay, so do we need to vote to defer that, or?
I mean, he's not here. Why don't we just, for cleanliness, why don't we just go ahead and do the motion if you don't mind?
If someone wouldn't mind making a motion, I'd be forever appreciative.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms.
I
Hammond.
move that ARB defer action item ARB 2025 MV-00021 located, am I saying the right one? Yes, I am, 87 Milltown Court, Alexandria, tax map 1092-090004 in the Woodlawn HOD. The proposed installation of 9 solar panels on the existing residential roof, as submitted but not presented at the June 12th, 2025 ARB meeting. I motion to defer this proposal to our scheduled July 2025 meeting.
Is there a second? Second? All those in favor?
Oh, the reason, excuse me, is that the applicant is not present to present to the board.
Okay. You still good with your second?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right. So let's move out of items for action. Let's move into items for workshop. And let's first take up ARB WK 2025 MV 0013 2007, Martha's Road, and Ms. Lerner, rock and roll.
No preamble needed. Okay, so we'll just jump right in. So in 2007, Martha's Road was damaged in the storm on May 16th. And just to give you some orientation, this particular home has a great presence within the neighborhood. It sits right at the top of Stafford Road. It's the house in black on this map, and so you've got a great visual of it right as you come into the neighborhood from one of the entrances. If we can move the slide on. And these are some images of the home prior to the storm. Now, I just want to note that everything about this house, everything that you see was existing, and all the conditions that we need to rebuild were existing prior to the home even being designated an historic neighborhood. So even though there are parts of the home that are not original, there have been additions. They were done many, many, many years ago, and they're designated as historic as well because they were sort of grandfathered in at this point. Right, so this is the view as you come right up into the front. I want you to pay particular attention to this area here at the corner. That's where you're going to see the biggest change, right, that on that face, on that front elevation. Okay, so you can get a sense of what it looks like on all sides. If we can move forward, please. We have some elevations. We have a good start. Our client had done these drawings in the past, actually. He had this home modeled, so we actually have some existing elevations as a base to work with, which is great. It was documented, so we're sort of ahead of the game on this one, which is why we're hopeful we can turn around the drawings for the next meeting rather quickly. But this reflects what you see in the images anyway, in the photographs anyway. You can sort of cycle through this because this is all existing. And here's a plan showing it on the site as well. He also had it in 3D. Just reflects everything you saw in the photograph. I know this is not the most stimulating presentation, but we're just showing you existing conditions and what we're going to recreate. It's going to get a lot more exciting. Here we go. Look at this. Okay. Remember that front corner I had you paying attention to? This is it today. We just, sort of covered up the damage to try to seal it as best as we could, but obviously they've had major damage. You can see to the whole front corner of their house. Here it is zoomed in. So we're looking at really, you can see the tree that fell over, right? So you can see the extent of work that we're really talking about. But again, the idea is not to do anything new. We are just repairing, rebuilding everything that was there. Down here in this image, you can see there was also some roof damage to the addition. Matt, if you have any questions about this, Matt can speak more extensively about exactly the condition that it is in today after the storm. And was that actually the final image that's in the presentation? It is, yeah. So that's sort of what we're dealing with. Obviously, the home does not need to be raised. We're not rebuilding from scratch, but we do need to repair. And as you've seen in emails, our client is just very concerned about sealing it up so that it's not exposed to the elements until we can really get in there and get started working, but we feel confident that we can do that ahead of time. So that's where we're at. We just want to make sure that, we don't have any pitfalls.
Well, I think also to understand if there's anything specific that you guys would like to see in the permit set that would, if there is, I'd just like to know now so we can make sure to come back in July. And we're really hoping it's an easy yes, knowing that there's not another meeting in August. We do really kind of run the risk of an unfortunate excess delay that we want to try to avoid.
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's going to be an in-kind rebuild. Correct. I think we're not changing the floor plan in any way, the footprint of the home. We're going to be using the same materials, I think, in the rebuild. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we may replace a single pane window with a double pane window, right? Like an IG unit, but for all intents and purposes, it'll look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Ms. Hammond.
My experience working with cities, creating a safe site where someone could not get hurt is something that the board is comfortable with and needs to happen from a public safety point of view. So I have no problem with that happening here. I just looked at the historic district. I'm sorry, I don't have my computer. I'm not on Facebook. I'm looking at the report from our office. And so the house was built, let's see, in 1951. In 1957, an addition on the south elevation was added by Caspar Neer, and in 1966, on the east elevation, an addition was added by George Hartman. I mean, there's no way that they can be rebuilt in a way that looks just like, I mean, to a skilled person's eye, like, it's not going to look like an addition from 1957 or 1966. I mean, it's going to meet current building code, it's going to meet energy code, it's going to have modern materials. And I'm fine with that. I just want to, like, this narrative of, like, we're going to build it exactly to match existing, that's impossible. You could say you're going to build it to match the existing height, footprint, fenestration pattern, maybe materials. I don't know. I don't know what the original materials were. They might not be viable anymore by building code. They might not be. Like T111 is not the same when you buy it off the shelf now as it was in the 60s. So things like that, when you come back in July, it might be totally fine that it's different from the 60s and the 50s, but I think we need to know, like, hey, we've sourced it, and this is the change, or this is what we need to change to meet current building code. I think, maybe some improvements can be made, because I don't know how pristine it was. Did the additions look exactly like they did from 1966, or had the homeowner made some changes in the decades since then? So just if you could bring any existing photos that I'm sure the homeowner didn't anticipate this happening. So maybe they have some Easter photos or something with the kids on the front porch where we can see the additions to the best of their ability. And then, yeah, just any of those differences that are happening when the rebuild, just call them out to us. And, I don't anticipate any red alarms, but I just want to know that. And that's it. I'm sorry this happened. It's really, traumatizing.
Yeah.
Like my neighborhood's from the 50s, not nearly as cool as Haunted Hills, but we do lose trees all the time, and we always lose power for days sometimes on end. I have a generator for that reason, so I empathize with the property owner.
Yeah. Mr. Plum?
Just a real quick question. On your site plan, you have something called stormwater/Goodman Park Stream that's really heavy. Is that, I'm thinking it's the storm sewer underground, right?
Where is it on there?
That's on your,
Here.
yeah. I'm assuming that's underground, right? Yes. An inlet. It looks, either that.
Oh, is that part of the project that they were doing?
I'm not sure if that's, John, do you know if that's underground or it's just a?
It's both.
It changes.
There's a swale on top of the height, right? But there is a park that is essentially a drainage ditch.
Okay.
Between two sections of Holland Hills on the other side of the street, down to Paul Spring.
Okay.
And there is a pipe that goes underneath.
Under the road, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then but yes, and the George Hartman edition, which is the one that's closest to it, is quite close. I mean, it's what, 4 feet or 5 feet, and then it's simply mushy.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Technical
and
term.
then that also then has a basement under it.
Under the house.
Under the
portion.
Hartman addition on the
Yeah, this side here.
There's a
And Judge, correct me if I'm wrong, but that whole area has been the site of a huge intervention project.
That's on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
On
the
that
other
side
side
it has
of-
been, it
on the
doesn't
north side
extend
of the
over here, okay.
But the damage to the addition, it's a fair point, the damage is more so here, and I don't think we're actually going to need to rebuild the envelope on this side, which is closest to the stream. It'll mostly be kind of confined like here, and then roof, but we won't really need to be over here too much at all.
So it's kind of like an overland relief swale that's carrying water, but there's also a pipe underneath it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just was wondering because it looks pretty dynamic. Yeah.
It was a peculiar way in which the tree fell. The trunk of the tree fell parallel to the house.
That's good.
Facade,
That's
right?
good.
And those 5 Holland Hills windows are on the upper right side there, totally intact, right?
Intervention.
And then the crown of the tree crushed the upper floor at the the east end of the house. And then when the branches came down and slapped the top of the Hartman.
Was anyone injured? No one was injured?
Nobody's injured.
No,
They were home.
They were home. They got really lucky. I mean, their daughter was
Two young
sleeping
children. Oh my
like
God.
just the other side of the room that was pretty much crushed.
Oh, yeah.
But when the top of the tree came down and slapped the top of the Hartman, it cracked the joists.
Unreal.
Yeah, it's a big beam. And then, of course, then it dropped the ceiling on the bed.
Yeah, the trunk sheared, if you look at those pictures, the trunk, I mean, they got really, really lucky, right? I mean, they're really unlucky, but it could have been a lot worse if that tree was, 3 feet over, because the trunk sheared the eave right off. Wow. So, all right, good luck. Thanks.
Other questions or comments? This one.
Just so next review can be much easier, I echo Ms. Hammond's comments that if you collect the existing information, existing building information, so we know that something got changed or something not. The other part is the material going to use, the major building system that like roofing, like a window, and give us the specification for that.
Yes.
That will help a lot.
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah,
I
so,
don't think there's any your point about T111 is fair, but I don't think there's T111 on this house. It's all,
It's
on the groove.
It's on groove.
Yeah,
This
it's
not the groove,
and then
it's
it's like, so almost like a horizontal lap siding, which is unlike, it's not typical, but,
it's all painted.
yeah, and everything is painted, including the brick, so.
So I think we'll get lucky. But to your point, you're right. So in Holland Hills, we sort of know as a rule of thumb that when we have operable windows, we always provide the cut sheets of the actual window that we'll be using so that you can understand the narrow style and rail and whatnot. Things like that, I assume you mean. Yeah, okay, great.
So
Mr. Clancy.
Just having been on site and talking through there, I think I'm fairly confident that under an existing building code, that you'll be able to replicate very closely what was there. I don't think we're going to have to thicken up any roof structures or anything like that are going to, change the, say, the overall appearance. I think you're going to be pretty close. I mean, there might be some minor things, and please document that, but I think you're, from everything we talked about, it won't be substantially different than what.
And I think if we needed to change, say, the roof rockers, right, if we need to account for heavier snow loads or something, we would just go to tighter spacing with the same depth members. So again, from the outside, it would all look the same. We might just have a few more pieces, so.
Yeah.
There are tricks we can play.
And I think going off what
Preserve
Mr. Kalinsky says, that probably gives you the best chance of July being a successful appearance.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any other questions or comments on this one, so let's move into our next workshop, which is ARB WK 2025 MV 00014-2207, Martha.
Yes, not to be mistaken for 2007.
Yes, ma'am.
So admittedly, we have less information in this presentation just because we aren't lucky enough to have a client who happened to have modeled it in a computer and have elevations, but we will be producing that obviously to create permit drawings, so we will have exterior elevations to bring to you next time around when we come for approval. So this home, the photographs, the existing photographs that you're seeing, this home is a little luckier. The damage is not in the front of the house, and the damage all occurred in a specific area that is an addition, sort of a box-like addition, existing on the rear of the house. So they're very much able to sort of section off that part of the house, block it off. The rest of the house is okay, pretty much, with a few exceptions, that Matt can speak to you about if you have questions. So what you're looking at, we did the best we could. We had photographs from different dates. So let me just explain to you so that there are no surprises later. This is the area of the addition that was mostly damaged. However, this is not the most recent photo. The most recent photo we don't have the best image of, but you can see down here that the only difference is that a deck has been added, and you can see the deck in this image. So this is accurate, it just is missing the deck that was actually existing when the storm occurred. But these are sort of the best images of that addition, so we included in the presentation so that you could understand
Sorry,
where
Debbie.
the area was.
So that deck though was added, I want to say like 2018-ish, again, before the neighborhood
Was deemed
converted into the HOD.
That's true. That
And
is true.
it was fully permitted at that point.
Yes.
And obviously the DRC within Holland Hills was
Approved it as
completely on board too.
Yes, that's true. We actually built that project as well, which is why we know a little bit about it. So this is the area that was damaged. You can see the parameters of that box-like addition that had been previously built, and that's where the tree fell, so.
The county likes additions.
Scoop forward. And so this is a sort of a before and after photograph that you're looking here. We put them side by side. This is a view as if we rotated around the house, around the left side of the house. So this is that box-like addition from the side, and you can see how the tree, it's like it wanted to separate the addition from the rest of the house. Really said, I don't like that, and we're going to take it away. Is what happened there.
It's from the 90s, so.
So we can do without it anyway. So is that the idea? Right.
It was
So.
earlier than that, actually, wasn't it?
That's what the report says, is that it was 1993.
It's possible.
Could be.
This is a unique Holland Hills home to begin with. It's one of the, it's not a model, it's one of the customs. Yeah, it's a neat house. Was there another one in this presentation, or is that all we had? Okay, so there's one, thank you. So you can see how these trees, some of them are just so mature, they're really extensive.
This was a massive tree. It was 7.5 feet at the trunk.
Yeah. So it really just, came across the whole deck. And again, Matt can answer questions about how it affected the rest of the house
Yeah,
as
it
well.
actually racked the entire addition. So every one of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, verticals, which is sheared in half. So when the tree fell, the whole, the whole building just racked. But interestingly, none of the glass broke.
Again, it's
And
wild.
the only thing I can think of is that it hit, and obviously those windows are really just held in with sealant. If it was a window that was screwed in or nailed in like a traditional, modern window, it would have shattered for sure because it was held. But here, everything moved and they just popped up a little bit. So I don't think we're going to be able to reuse the glass, but it is a pretty extensive rebuild just given the fact that half of this wall is crushed, the glass wall, that's the other load-bearing wall for the roof structure, that one's, toast, and then the far wall, again, the whole thing wrapped, so if you look at an interior picture of the door frame, it's all a little, funhousey. So unfortunately, I think this one is likely to be completely rebuilt, but again, the plan is to, mimic what's there. It's tongue and groove siding, it's, traditional window details, flat roof, single slope roof.
Do you know which architecture firm did the 93 addition?
I think, so like Deborah said, we did the renovation on this, half dozen years ago. I think they had the plans, the original plans, and the homeowner just hasn't been able to find them yet, so we'll see.
Do you know Robert Lena, the firm?
Lives across the
Robert Pina?
Yeah.
There he goes.
Well, he's the builder.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's, the report cites him as a designer, but it could be an oversight. Yeah.
At that time, he might have been married to an architect.
Oh, so maybe he had a design build.
I don't quote me on that. But he and his wife worked together.
Yeah.
But that marriage broke up, and I'm not sure exactly when that happened.
Cotton Holland Hills, cultural history.
The gates.
Yeah.
But in Virginia, you do not need to be a licensed architect to do residential design.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible Robert did it on his own.
Sure thing. In the picture there, since that addition's going to get totally rebuilt on the right where the Mitsubishi split system is,
Yeah.
is it possible to kind of do a different look to that so it isn't so obtrusive? I know it's not shown from the street, but maybe things have come a long way. Same system, but maybe it's done.
They certainly have come a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
well, I
as a
mean,
thought.
if we flip back to the before pictures, I'd be curious to know where maybe you think would be better to place it, because you're right, we can put it anywhere. The reality is that addition does not connect to any of the HVAC in the existing, or the main part of the house.
I don't mind the unit there, but just the
line
coolant
set.
line,
The
and
line set, for sure.
The white conduit, the white wire.
Well, the line set can definitely be buried inside the wall.
Yeah, that's a home run. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the hooks are nice. Put my jacket on there, it's all good.
Okay.
Well, there used to be a hot tub there, so that's what those hooks are for.
I know.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, this one seems more straightforward.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you very
You all
much.
have a good evening.
great.
See you next month.
Denise?
Yes.
Thanks again for your time before, guys.
Just to
All
reiterate.
right, one second. Let's take, is it about,
Yeah, I was just going to tell them,
Okay.
just as
Yeah.
an FYI, we're not here in August, so July is important.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
that's,
we'll talk about it.
yeah, agreed.
Let's take 5 minutes. All right, let's call the meeting back to order. We're done with our items of the workshop. Let's go into presentations. We have a presentation on the Centerville Suburban Area Study, Warden Lane update, and Mr. Burton is here to present to us. Sir?
Thank you all so very much. It's good to see you all again. My name is Michael Burton. I'm with the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development. I'm joined by Clara Johnson, also with the Department of Planning and Development. And we're here to talk to you all tonight about a specific property in the Centerville HOD. We call it the Warden Lane property. It's undeveloped, so it doesn't have a formal address yet, but it does have the easiest tax map parcel in the world. Let's see if I can advance it. So it's 54-4, double circle 4. Just got to remember the first numbers of 5 and you're good to go. So the subject property is approximately 5 acres. As I mentioned, it is currently undeveloped. It is within the Centerville HOD. And you can see here on the map, just to locate you, north is sort of to the bottom left side of your screen. That's Interstate 66. So the property is south of that. Wharton Lane actually dead ends right when you get to the edge of 66. So the last few developments would be Wharton Park Court, and then the townhomes just to the north of the subject property. I'm also going to call out and just note the larger single-family home lots that are to the south of the property along Summit Street. That's going to be an important part of our conversation, so I want you to keep that section in mind.
Wait, I have a question. Everything in yellow there is HOD?
No, I'm sorry. So the yellow is just a parcel boundary.
Okay.
The HOD is not outlined on this map,
Okay.
but I will have a map for you to
Thank
show
you.
you exactly where it is. Most of you are probably more savvy than I, and you probably already understand the comprehensive plan, but just as a quick refresher, it's a policy document that we use to review development in the county or development proposals in the county. And this particular process is, I would say, the first stage of the review process for the nomination that's being proposed. I will note, I left SSPA on here as the proposal. The property came to us as part of the 2022 cycle of SSPA, which is the site-specific plan amendment process. That's where it was introduced. I wanted to show briefly just some of the development that's occurred in this area really since over the last 30 years. You can see back in 1990, there wasn't a significant amount of development. There were a few spaces that were coming online across the street from Wharton Lane. The north-south road that you see there, that's Route 28, and that's the interchange, the new mixing bowl now, so this is a very old image. By 1997, you can see that there's a number of multifamily developments that have occurred specifically around the Route 28 and Interstate 66 corridor interchange. Fast forward about 5 years, 2002, and you can see not much has changed in this area, but to the far right of your screen, that's Centerville Farms. It's starting to come online. And then by 2007, you see a significant amount of development that's occurred around it. But I want you to note, I want to call out specifically Summit Street. Summit Street has not developed at the same intensity or in the same way that the other properties around it did. And that is going to be integral to the existing plan language that I'm going to share with you in a moment. The Centerville HOD, let me make sure I get it correct, is located within the Fairfax County's Bull Run Planning District and operates comprehensive development guidelines that prioritize historic preservation and resource protection. A few things to note: all development proposals, as you all know, must preserve the historic character, including the architectural resources and archaeological Civil War features. Development requires emphasize connectivity through the district by creating pedestrian linkages and implementation of low-impact stormwater management systems. Development proposals found within the HOD are reviewed by, of course, the Architectural Review Board for compatibility and may require archaeological investigations to determine the presence or absence of intact archaeological resources. Development and new construction is evaluated, of course, by you all with the architectural character of existing historic structures in terms of material, scale, massing, design, while incorporating appropriate landscaping and building orientation. I think you all know that. That's your purview. So here's a map of the HOD. The subject property, 5-acre lot, is there in the north. And you can see that the HOD kind of winds its way in between the properties. And that's because there are some significant Civil War archaeological features there. There's a covered way. And you can see an example that's not the actual covered way, but an example of a covered way through that narrow site that leads right up to the edge of the subject property. And the subject property is included, again, as it was undeveloped. And there are some other features along the north side of Wharton Lane that are also recognized and called out.
Is the entire subject property in the HOD? Because it's hard to tell.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the entirety of the subject property is within the HOD boundary.
And it's at the very top.
At the tippity top, yeah.
Yeah,
And is a covered way for soldiers to move through?
between the forts.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Pretty cool.
Happy birthday, America.
And thank you to Cheryl for providing some additional information. So Cheryl was kind enough to share the LiDAR imagery for the area, and you can really see it. You can clearly see the trench that runs, or the covered way, between the forts. I'm going to call out the piece that's to the north. That's the apex fort, and the piece that's to the bottom, I think, is the middle fort. Perfect.
That's cool.
And this is the same image, but now we have the parcels outlined there. And you can see how close the subject property, which is bounded by the black border, how close that is to the apex fort. And that was recognized when the plan language that we currently have in place was being written. We knew that there were areas here that needed protection. And so the existing plan guidance has some very specific language about consolidation and doing our very best to maintain and preserve those features.
Is the covered way part of the people's property because the property looks like it goes right down the middle of it, but there's an easement there that they cannot?
There is an easement, yes, sir. So the property lines, you can see here, there's sort of a space between the property lines. This is owned by the Park Authority, and this land was committed as these developments came online. They committed it to the Park Authority for preservation, and there's an access from Pickwick Road. It's heavily vegetated, but you could make your way up through to the apex fort, and then there's an easement here along, can't see the name, I think it's Shelbourne, that allows you to get back to the...
So is the covered way, again, on the people's property who have a house on it, so they can do anything to it? No.
A portion of it appears to be within their property line, but I do believe that it's protected under the HOD.
Gotcha, thank you. Is it enforced, or?
So there's a trail that runs from Pickwick Road to the Apex Fort and then exits onto Shelburne Court.
Okay.
And it is a Park Authority trail. Perhaps not the best maintained Park Authority trail. You were saying it was heavily vegetated, but it is actually a trail.
I guess I would just be concerned that there's a six-foot high fence in the middle of that covered way.
In some places.
Hopefully there isn't.
It says the guidelines say that it was originally 17 acres and expanded to 84 in 2007, and that's when these Civil War sites were captured in the 2007 expansion.
Got it, thank you. Okay. Very neat.
It's rather unique, HOD, in terms of how they were able to extend the district out there.
All right, so as I mentioned before, originally a nomination for the property came to us via the 2022 SSPA cycle, and the nomination proposed residential use, single-family detached homes, up to 3 dwelling units per acre on the 5-acre site. I'll quickly note that the current comprehensive plan, and I'll show you that language here in a minute, does allow for an option up to 3 dwelling units per acre. However, it has a series of conditions that prevent it from reaching that density. And it's those conditions that we were asked to evaluate as to whether or not the conditions should be maintained or do they still make sense. At the time of the 2022 SSPA cycle, the property owner did submit an archaeological survey to us. However, we received it pretty late in the process and we were not able to consider it as a part of the SSPA process. We were at the outset of the Centerville study that was just being authorized, and so we offered the property owner the opportunity to consider this as part of the Centerville study, which is why it's coming back to you all now. Yeah, of course.
This is one property owner for all 5 acres?
One property owner for the 5 acres.
Do you know if this owner has owned adjacent acres and has developed other sites? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say, has he or she owned abutting lands that have been developed recently?
I don't know. However, the previous owner is joining us tonight, so we can, if we get to that point, we can probably find out for
I
you.
get very nosy, sorry.
So
The answer is no, we have not developed it around it.
this is a lot of text, I know. This is the comprehensive plan guidance for the subunit that the property is located within. So the property is located within subunit B4 within the Centerville Planning District. And as I mentioned, the entire subunit is planned for up to 2 to 3 dwelling units per acre. But I'm going to note the bottom, the colored text there at the bottom, that it specifically calls out the subject parcel, that it is planned for 1 to 3 dwelling units an acre. However, density above 1 dwelling unit per acre is contingent upon consolidation. What is it consolidating with? Let's see if I have it here. There is an adjoining or an adjacent subunit that's a part of the Centerville Farms plan area. It's a little confusing, but the area that you see shaded in blue, that's land unit F. And the current plan requirements require that that property along Summit Street consolidate with the subject property. If you remember back when I was showing you the picture of the development in the area, we believe that there was development interest at the time that the current plan guidance was being drafted. And one of the tools that we use to try to preserve and protect important spaces is consolidation. And so we added language to the comprehensive plan requiring the owners of the properties within land unit F and the owner of the subject property to work together. If they could consolidate the properties, we would allow for that higher intensity to be reached, up to the 3 dwelling units per acre.
But they couldn't work together?
I don't think they could. No, I don't know the full story, so I won't give you anything anecdotally, but the development never materialized. So today, if you drive down Summit Street, it looks like sort of a blast from the past. There's been a lot of improvements to the homes there, so it's really, really nice. And that's a consideration of ours, is whether or not the consolidation language that we currently have in the plan still makes sense, given the reinvestment along Summit Street.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to that slide, please? Okay, stuff that's outlined in kind of a jagged red line there, are those the single-family homes that you were talking about?
So the red line, this is the HOD.
Red line is the HOD.
The red line is the HOD, and the single family, what I have demarcated in the black outline, those are the single family homes along Summit Street. This is Summit Street here.
Makes sense.
And then this is Wharton Lane with the subject property here.
Okay, so some of the parcels on Summit Lane, their backyards are in the HOD.
Yes.
And
Which gets to the question that,
So it's a buffer zone around the
Yeah.
way.
okay, I understand it. So okay, so they're within the HOD, but then there's an easement on the backyards. Is that the way it works?
Just for the
Yeah.
trail.
The Park Authority property, so the Park Authority property, I don't think has that jagged edge to it. So the HO, it's covered by the HOD, but it's not covered by the Park Authority ownership. They actually Walney Glen actually turned the land over to the Park Authority, I believe. They transferred it.
Okay, and that parcel F, I think you called it.
Unit F?
Right.
Yes.
That is all under one owner?
No, it's multiple owners, but back in the 90s, we believed that there was interest in redevelopment. And so they were in the process of acquiring all of the single family homes here.
Okay,
And for redevelopment.
thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
This is kind of maybe a stupid question, but in 2007, when we extended the boundaries, we obviously decided not to capture the full footprint of those single-family dwellings because we were only interested in the Civil War context at the rear of the properties, and they're not historic homes themselves? Okay.
So there was an effort not to, so that they didn't include all of Walney Glen or all of that area adjoining it, because that would, this is before Holland Hills, and it would have been like a lot of contemporary modern homes that would have had to come before the ARB.
And those homeowners weren't happy about giving up land?
Yeah, I assumed that.
And so this
was a compromise.
This is the compromise.
But now it kind of feels like a strange way to write it. I don't know.
It's history.
Yeah, it's history. Yeah.
History is messy.
I guess the Park Service did not have enough wherewithal or money, whatever you want to call it, to acquire the gentleman's property that we're talking about, the 5 acres, to extend us into a open space between these homes. It's a dreamland,
the
but...
Park Authority, and I can't comment on their upper management
it's okay.
decisions.
No problem. Is there any easement running through the property that is, like the proposed subject property?
No easement through the
subject. Do something? Okay.
Are the two forts,
They're safe.
Apex and then,
Middle Fort?
yeah, when you visit the site, are they discernible or is everything underground?
So I think it's all underground.
No, actually, it is so the middle fort is hard to see. It's striking how visible it is in the LiDAR compared to if you are walking on site. And that, it's in a couple of different backyards, in addition to being some small portion of it might be on the Park Authority land. And the Apex Fort, however, is visible. People don't necessarily see it because they don't know what they're looking at, but there is a very clear trench that you can see the embrasures of where the guns were. There's a very clear trench leading out from it into the community. The covered way, you kind of walk, you start on a level ground and then you kind of walk down through the trench.
And there's
and then you climb out.
no interpretation, no signage?
Not, I'm working on it.
Okay, no, I mean,
The Park Authority is about to.
Because that's important to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a plan, and there is funding and proper monies for interpretation. This is in addition to the historic overlay district. You have historic Sunrail Park. So I don't know if you have a parkland map, but I don't. So parcel B2 is Mount Gilead. So there's a 1785 house on that property.
This one has
In addition to a 1934 Sears catalog house.
Yeah.
And that is parkland. The parkland also now extends to B5. That is the Royal Oaks property, which is mostly an archaeological, ruined foundations. And then where Michael was just pointing out, those 37 and 36 on Mount Gilead Road, those are also now parkland, just vacant space. And then number, is it 23? That's the Rice property. That is also parkland, called the Winter Quarters.
Okay.
And then within the covered way and the Apex 4 piece, that's parkland. There was an attempt in 2007 to get number 10 because that's a battery. It's another fortification. But the homeowners association had some legal issues or something. Initially they said yes, and then they backed out of it. So that's now still within their common land, their common property.
So this is so helpful, by the way. Thank you. The fort that's going to be interpreted abuts this parcel that we're talking about today.
Yes, it goes right up to, now we have the LiDAR imagery and the GIS mapping might be off a little bit, but it's really close.
Okay.
Rolling, so the language that describes the requirements for consolidation are actually found in Land Unit F. So if you go to Land Unit D4, it's just going to point you to another part of the plan, which is here. Again, more text on the screen. I'm just going to parse out the pieces that matter. So significant Civil War earthworks and fortifications on portions of some of the parcels within Land Unit F, and that's sort of the jagged line that you all saw, as well as on parcel 54-4. And this was the language that we were using in evaluating the SSPA nomination when it came forward. Again, it calls to foster preservation, and it speaks to the density up to the 30 dwelling units per acre. These are the conditions associated with the consolidation. The first bullet just talks about the consolidation. The second one I want to draw your attention to, it talks about access being provided to both Wharton Lane and Leland. And this would assume that those two big land areas that I had mapped out in black with the black border would consolidate into one community. We would encourage access into two different directions. So one through Wharton Lane, through the new community down to Leland. That was something else that we were going to look at. Interestingly though, the third bullet specifically talks about or calls out parcels with earthworks and fortifications on them. It does not list the subject property. It does list the adjacent properties. So we had some work to do, as you might imagine, trying to, one, understand the intent of the current comprehensive plan language that's in there today. To do that, we had to rely on our great partnerships with archaeology, as well as our heritage resource staff, and FCDOT to try to understand if the guidance that's currently in the plan, number one, still makes sense, and if that's something that we should still pursue or consider when thinking about the redevelopment of this property. So there are two key questions that we came away with. One, what is the intent behind the original recommendation to consolidate? And two, is consolidation still needed to help us achieve those plan goals? Or can we still achieve the goals in the plan via some other mechanism? I mentioned this before, we use consolidating or consolidation. We recommend consolidation as a tool to help us preserve open space opportunities, land preservation, as well as helping us better arrange development within a site. We can think about where and how the homes are arranged. In this case, we determined that the original language was for the protection, obviously, of archaeological and historically significant resources. And as we mentioned, there was a significant amount of development interest at the time, and we saw this as the best way to achieve that preservation. Is consolidation still needed to achieve the plan goals? Can we still preserve sensitive portions of the site through some other plan guidance or recommendation. Do we still need the connectivity that was suggested if both sites were to consolidate into one? And so those were two of the additional questions. Are there portions of the subject property that are worth preserving? And should we preserve the ability to provide additional connections? So our archaeology staff were able to take a look at the Phase 1 archaeological survey that was provided by the property owner at the time. That examination concluded that there were no artifacts, significant artifacts on the subject property, and metal detection did not discover or only discovered modern metal artifacts, nothing of historical significance. I'll also note that the earthworks were found to not extend onto the property. Again, they're very, very close, but it comes right up to the edge. The earthworks do not actually appear on the subject property itself. So our archaeology staff did determine that the report that was provided was a sound report, and they have no reason to refute the veracity of the findings. We also asked FCDOT, do we still need a connection in this area for any reason? And I'll jump through most of these because I think we can get through it pretty quickly. This just shows some of the planned road improvements that are in the area. The subject property is demarcated here with the red star. Notice that there are no planned roads here. Again, this was an idea from Department of Planning and Development that via consolidation, we would simply require access both to Wharton Lane, which is here, and to Leland. But FCDOT did not note a need for a new road. This is a quick map of the pedestrian facilities in the area. Purple, I believe, are trails. The gold are the private sidewalks. Blue are public sidewalks. There could still be some opportunities in thinking about this site to make some of those connections if this were to redevelop. Potentially a connection to the covered way, if that's seen as something viable, or helping neighbors who live along Wharton Lane connect to Summit or up into Sweet Woodruff Lane in the Centerville Farms area. And the recommendations concluded that a new street or new road connection is not fully needed. They are encouraging pedestrian connections through the site if we were to move forward. And they are encouraging additional connections, as I mentioned, potential connections to the covered way if that seemed feasible by archaeology and the Parks Department. So just to wrap up really quickly, and then I'm done. No significant artifacts were noted. We do not necessarily need a vehicular connection, but we will encourage additional connections if we recommend that the existing conditions be removed. Another important note to make is that this proposal is not recommended to come out of the HOD. It would still remain a part of the HOD. That would have to go through a completely separate process. And staff is continuing to evaluate the residential density. Do we think that the 15 dwelling units per acre, 3 units to the 5 acre, still makes sense? Or is there something that might be more appropriate? Our next steps are to continue to evaluate, as I mentioned, that density. The recommendation for this proposal will be packaged with the Centerville study. So when that study concludes at the end of the year, early 2026, that's where we would hope to add a recommendation. There is a task force that's in place as a part of the Centerville study. We are briefing them on this nomination, and they will also provide some feedback. And that's all I have. Sorry it took so long. I'll open the floor for any questions you have.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Plumpy and then Ms. Hammond.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Ms.
I just want to remind people that Liz Kroll is here from archaeology. She's in the meeting, she's just not visible. So if there are questions specifically about archaeology, she can help answer those.
Thank you. So right now, with the condition that the two parcels need to be combined, or the F and the other part of the subject property, that's the only way that the increased density can happen to 3 units per acre. Right now, it can only be 1 unit per acre, even on the subject property as well as what's already currently on the F. Correct?
Correct.
So to me, I think it's a positive to keep that mechanism there. It's more challenging because you said not too many successful efforts have been able to do that. So therefore, low density is there. I would also say that for the, not the middle fort, but what's the other fort called?
The Apex Fort.
Yeah, the Apex Fort. Since it's right at the corner there, so whatever's developed, that maybe there's in the comp plan that there's a extension of a buffer of some sorts around it versus having someone's swimming pool right at the corner of the lot or something like that. So I think appropriate buffer of some distance would be great so that we can preserve that as people walk down that pathway, that it can feel like they're still in something, even though you're going to go by people's houses and so forth. But anything we can do to help preserve that Apex Fort surround look. I know it's not just the fort itself, but a little bit of surrounding it would go a long ways. I think the lower density is better for this. It's still, one can kind of squint and see, yes, there's still a lot of trees as opposed to not so many trees if you do a 3 units per acre as opposed to 1 unit per acre. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm confused. Are you telling us today that, yes, planning staff is recommending that the stipulation that they can work together be removed?
We are considering it. So part of that effort is to come and talk to you all. We also talked with the History Commission on last week. Was it last week? I think it was last week. To also get their feedback as well. And then the week before that, we had a community meeting also.
So if that stipulation is removed, then they can only build a single-family dwelling, 1 per acre.
Right. So up to 5.
Okay, I thought
I'm fine with it being removed. And yeah, and then can we see a copy of that? Is there some place to see the Phase 1 archaeology report?
We don't have it online, but we can share it. We do have a copy of it. We can certainly, yeah.
And of course, our archaeologist is in the meeting, right?
Yes.
Here.
Okay.
Yes.
Hear her thoughts.
I know. And the county's archaeologist.
Yes.
Can you stop sharing so we can see that?
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Rachel, just if you...
No, great questions. I was like, is there an option to not develop near the archaeological site? I can't even think outside of the, why would you do that? But no, I'm just thinking of Arlington County has Fort Ethan Allen that, there's some residential houses that abut, but I just feel like every project that has ever happened there, they always uncover something. So I'm shocked, Liz, that they didn't find any artifacts, but I don't know, what your thoughts about it were, or...
Well, when we initially looked at it, we were, predicting that there would be artifacts and features that would be discovered, but they were not as part of the study. So, unfortunately, now, probably when any kind of a development would take place, they would probably, have a requirement for open space. And if that's the case, then they could look at putting open space, near them.
Did you get to help with the methodology?
I'm sorry, I didn't, there was a noise in the background, and I didn't quite hear that.
Sorry. Did you get to help review the work plan or the methodology for the survey before they did it?
We did not review the work plan and the methodology. The report was presented to us as a done deal. Normally, if it goes through, this was, and Denise can help me with this, but this was kind of more like an out of turn study. So usually we would get the report somewhat later in the process, but we did, we got the report to review. It was submitted to us.
Okay. I just, the lines, the LiDAR data was showing how close the Apex Fort came to the subject property, and that's where I was thinking there must have been some evidence of trenching
you would think so, but it didn't turn out that way, unfortunately from archaeological resource point of view.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I will say, you should, whatever plan gets developed, a really important aspect will be some type of inadvertent discovery plan, for sure,
Yeah.
because shovel testing is, you can dig like just, inches away from the thing and not
Right.
find it, and so.
Yeah, no, unanticipated discovery would be definitely something that should be incorporated.
Is VBHR, are any of these things listed on the state registry?
I would believe that we actually did submit a PIF for a National Register district that was accepted, but it didn't, they took the forts out because they like very neat, tight districts. They didn't like the.
Yeah.
And so, and they did actually suggest that we do something separate to get the forts within the National Register. They were surprised at the guy was saying, you can see the firing step on the trench.
So we told you to do more work.
Yeah. Which has not been done thus far. It is a heavily treed site, has been, we're looking at the aerials since 1937. It wasn't plowed, it wasn't being farmed.
Mr. Burton. Yeah, just an observation. If this is a fort with cannons, they would have wanted lines of fire, and so they would have gotten rid of all the trees.
Yes.
And this would have been, open field of view. And so the landscape today has nothing to do with what the historic conditions would have been. So that's a tough interpretive challenge. Now, I am very intrigued at the LiDAR. Does the county have that for the whole county?
We
Or do you
do.
only,
Publicly accessible, it was not cool.
that's publicly accessible?
Yes.
It is.
I know why John's doing tonight.
That's a lot of fun.
We've lost John for a week.
Bringing LiDAR in it.
It's the website for the county. It's an interactive.
That's just a layer.
It's
GIS?
an interactive map that you can call up.
Yeah.
So they have a bunch of them, and they have different kinds of LiDAR for different purposes.
I'll be darned.
Mr. Kalinsky.
So I have to assume whoever owns this property now is looking to develop it to its full potential. My thought is there's some sort of mechanism with the county that maybe that density could be awarded to them, but concentrated towards the roadside, and maybe keep a tree buffer as well as some sort of open space around the apex fort. So, I'm not that deep into planning, but I think you could get a win-win out of that as opposed to just telling the developer, well, you just get 5 houses.
Absolutely, and I'll note that open space is a requirement in residential development anyway, and we can think about where and how that's allocated on the property, and if it's, in the corner where there are existing archaeological resources, maybe not on the property, but near it, that's absolutely something that we can work to encourage.
Yeah, push everything onto 4 acres and then a 1 acre buffer around that, still allow, more density on those 4 acres, equivalent.
And that seems like, I'm not doubting that as a potential, but I will point out that Morton Lane actually connected to something back in the Civil War time period, and so that road was there, and part of what that fort is doing there is protecting that road. So it may, the idea that you might have undiscovered, that's going to be a contingency, potentially even close to the road.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us out of presentation and moves us into board and staff items. Our first item is review and action on approval of the previous month's minutes from May 8th, 2025. Did everyone have a chance to review, and does anyone have any changes to the minutes? And if not, I would certainly entertain a motion to approve the minutes and pay the clerk. Ms. Hammond.
I move that the ARB approve the May 8th, 2025 meeting minutes and pay the clerk, Brian Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Is there a second? Mr. Berman, seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Kalinsky abstains. He wasn't here last month. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our treasurer's report is that as of May 16, 2025, we had $21,286.58 in the bank. That moves us into our administrative items, discussions, updates, and reports. Denise, fiscal year 2026 budget.
So this was put in the administrative folder on the Ignite site. The Architectural Review Board was approved for their request of $15,972 for fiscal year 2026. That's for the continuation of supporting training, professional organization memberships, and the clerk, paying the clerk for 2 meetings. But the technology funding was, again, not approved.
We just got to keep trying.
We just got to keep trying.
Keep plugging away.
It was a very tight budget year, as I'm sure you all are aware.
Aware. Okay. Right, Denise, design guidelines update.
Yes. So just because I just got so much on my mind right now, I have this bulleted out, so bear with me while I read this to you all. With the creation of the first set of design guidelines, there was the consultant went through and did an inventory of all the properties, and the consultant made a determination which properties were contributing and which properties were not contributing to the historic overlay district. And then those design guidelines were adopted, and most of these were adopted in the early 1990s. Through the process of updating the most recent design guidelines, the consultant came back and had some questions about the designation and identification of the historic status of some of the properties. One property in particular we brought to this board for the Colvin Run store. I don't know if you all remember that. Okay. So at that time, the ARB recommended changing the status of the store. However, you paused and you said, do we have the authority to do that? So you all didn't take a vote. We paused, and this was like 2 years ago now. It turns out you don't have the authority to do that, and you didn't at the time in the 1990s when we adopted the design guidelines, the original design guidelines. So we're having to now go back through and take the current list of contributing and non-contributing properties to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So that's another holdup for the design guidelines. That's where we are right now.
And I just want to make sure it's clear for everyone on the board that Denise is talking about for all the historic overlay districts.
For all, except Wellington and
Holland Hills, because the board approved those.
So we're now working through the staff report. Luckily, we took all of the design guidelines out to the public last year, in 2024. So we have had public input on all of this information. Everybody's seen it. We had 6 public meetings. So we don't have to do that again, but we do have to go seek board approval. So that's just another hurdle with the design guidelines.
Yes. Thank you, Denise. Okay, next is 1102 Chainbridge Road Notice of Violation Update. The Board of Zoning Appeals heard the notice of violation. They upheld it unanimously. I spoke to Denise earlier this week, and it's my understanding that there has not been an appeal made to the Board of Supervisors.
Correct. That is correct.
And so the notice of violation is in place as we speak and now cannot be appealed.
So what happens?
So the clock ran out on the appeal.
Okay. So what happens to the house? They can sell it now as is, or they can't if they tear it down?
They will not get an occupancy permit until they're in conformance.
They have to come back to us. They have to come back.
Nice meeting. Make sure Chris is here.
Or, so the notice of violation is to bring in the,
So they could do it.
the house into conformance, right? So they could come back to the architectural review board if they continue to modify the original approved.
And that permit hasn't expired, the original permit?
Yeah, it's still open. They can still do work on the house, but they can't get that residential use permit.
It's part of the meeting recorded, so.
So, yes. Most likely would prevent them from selling the house to anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody
I
wants
mean,
to-
unless someone wants a house that they can't occupy.
No, I think they might lose the house now.
Yeah, so I mean, they can bring the house into conformance, or they obviously have the ability to come back to us again to seek our approval for some other design that they think we may find acceptable. That is what it is.
So the two options, yes.
I'm going to put my other announcement here, Denise, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Since Denise gave me the non-fun ones tonight. In our bylaws, it says that we may have an August recess. And we are, there is no final decision yet about whether or not we're having an August meeting, but some of the concern, not just from myself and Denise, but from some others in the county, especially with this situation in Holland Hills, this emergency with folks having issues with their homes from the storm, because we are aware of other homes, other than the two that we saw tonight, that have been affected. And we have not heard from them yet, that there may be a need for an August meeting. Denise and I have spoken, and I think we are going to make that decision based on what happens in July with what comes onto the agenda then. I will let you all know that I am participating in the planning meeting for the July meeting, but I will not be here for the July meeting, so Mr. Daniel will be chairing that meeting. But we will update you as soon as we can. But I think we need to get a better feel. I would say, if we don't get any other workshop items in July for Holland Hills properties, we may be in a very good position to not need an August meeting. But if we do, then we will evaluate. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Only, I know that I spoke with Mr. Burns earlier this week, and I think you were going to try to maybe talk to the Holland Hills ARB, I forgot what it's called, the
DRC.
Yeah. And sort of get a sense from them, if you had any sense. I was just wondering.
Yes, I did. I spoke to the several members of that board, and they are getting a lot of action. They are meeting on an ad hoc basis. I mean, these are community associations. They can get a little more flexibility than we do. But there are potentially 5 or 6 houses that might come in with requests to repair storm damage. I was just driving around, counting the Katrina tarps on roofs, just to get a rough census of that. And what you don't know is whether or not a branch fell and popped the skylight, or the whole back side of the house has collapsed and you only see the tarp on the front part, the minimal damage. You just don't know. Like the 2207 house, all you see from the street is a little bit of tarp, right? And everything else is in the back. And the Brusco house, it's in your face. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah, I guess kind of going off what Mr. Burns is saying, I think if we have homes that are more like the Brusco house, where we have people who are displaced out of their home, that's going to be a situation where I probably wouldn't feel too comfortable skipping an August meeting. If we have situations where, maybe it's affecting a small portion of the home, but folks are still able to occupy their home and there's not a dangerous condition or something like that. We can evaluate that on a case-by-case basis, but we don't know what we have until we know what we have.
Yeah,
So.
and it also, I mean, there's great emotion and urgency to move forward in the first week, right? But now people are realizing, like, well, the insurance company's going to take a while, and and all of a sudden, the huge urgency that we thought might fall on the July meeting seems to have dissipated some. People are taking time to explore options. A number of people I've talked to, with one guy had a $40,000 estimate, and somebody else gave him a $140,000 estimate. I said, well, you need to talk to more people. And so that all has to go on too, and things like that. So it may not have a tidal wave of projects coming in. And also, I'll observe that if a lot come in, we do have the opportunity to meet the following Monday in July.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
What is the deadline for them to submit a workshop for determine if it's August? What's the deadline date?
I'm going to be honest with you. I was very flexible, I think. I don't want to say too much, but Denise came to me, especially with the Brusco property, and I know that Mr. Kalinsky and Mr. Burns had been out there and communicated with them. The homeowner is very capable of representing himself and using all the resources that are available to him. And, I want to be, I would consider this an emergency type situation. Our bylaws aren't necessarily set up that way. We have one meeting a month. We have deadlines for when things have to get in. But to me, I'm less concerned about when it comes in, as long as we get it before a meeting. As long as we get it before a meeting, that's, we were communicating, for example, with the Brusco property up to yesterday, really trying to, see if we were going to get what we needed to make it an action item. Because if we had the information, in a situation like that, I want to help out. But if we don't have the information, I also don't want to, fall into some traps we've fallen into in the past. So it's a delicate balance, and I want to be as nimble as we can be and help people out because, the Bruscos have a 2- and 5-year-old, and we're very lucky that when that tree fell, that no one was injured. That's thank goodness. But again, as Mr. Burns said, we don't know what all this damage is on these other houses until we see it. Is it something that's preventing them from living in their home, or is it, I can't use my sunroom until, we get something fixed? I don't know.
To my knowledge, the only people who are displaced from their homes are the Bruscos.
Okay. Yeah, and that was a pretty significant event for them.
I just have a procedural question.
Yes, ma'am.
To have a quorum, we need live bodies.
6 live bodies in this room.
Okay, because we were planning to be out, potentially not on vacation, but not in, at my parents'.
Yeah,
I could call in,
I think we will, if Mr. Plumpy's right, I think our first line of defense is a 2nd July meeting, to the extent we can make that work. And then if we think we're going to need an August meeting, this isn't something Denise and I have discussed yet, but it makes sense to kind of do a survey of who would be available. So are we going to be able to achieve a quorum or not? So, we'll have to figure that out.
That bridge when we get to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know that I can be here for what that's worth.
Same.
August is light for me.
Same.
Yeah, everybody's engaged in their.
I have no child here in
stuff.
August, so I mean, you can't be elsewhere.
So, but we'll update you. We'll be in communication, and Mr. Daniel will, I am confident, ably lead you in my absence in July. Denise?
Before we get too far, sorry, I was just, I had raised my
Yes,
hand.
Ms. Mango.
On the subject of the emergency procedures, not that I work under these every single day under Section 106 regulations, but it just occurred, has there ever been a discussion about an emergency process for especially a large neighborhood like Holland Hills where, even, this is a major event.
No, it's a fair question, and in my communications with Mr. Brusco, I, said, as you can imagine, A lot of times, these things get changed in a reactive way, not in a proactive way. And for this body, having a large amount of residential structures is relatively new to us. And so, that language just isn't there. But I do think that this is a lesson, and this is maybe something Denise and I can connect with the county attorney on and see, what language we could bring to the Board of Supervisors that might be acceptable if we felt we needed to have the ability to have an emergency meeting. My only hesitation is we still, when something like this happens, I think we're still going to want the information that we feel we're going to need in order to approve something. And that's what I was trying to communicate to the applicant here was, I don't need an approved building permit. I don't need everything done and stamped, but I need your application with the drawings so that my board members have enough information to determine, are you truly doing an in-kind replacement like you're representing to me? If you are, I think you have a very good chance of, I can't speak for everyone, but I think you have a very good chance of that being approved. But taking a shot in the dark, right?
And maybe this is blasphemy, but could it be decided without a board meeting? So for example, Denise would use Ignite to upload the documents and people who needed to review the documents could see them, but there was an expedited review time frame and it didn't necessarily have to be an in-person meeting. Forgive me.
I think that would be lovely, but no, because under FOIA regulations, and that's the reason we need a 6-person in-person quorum. We need to allow the public to have notice of the meeting. We need to allow the public to have the ability to comment on items, which we did when we all met virtually, but we had a special exemption during COVID when we were able to do that. So, without that, unfortunately, no. I mean, for convenience purposes, I think that's great, but yeah.
No, I was going to say that, sometimes we don't get applications because they're simple enough that staff can approve it. This is not one of those cases, correct? Or is it? No,
I don't think so. I think some of the discussion we had is like, yes, I think they are going to make it as close as possible to what it used to be. Are they going to be able to do that 100%? I think probably not. Is it going to be pretty close? I think most likely. But I think we need to see that and be able to weigh in on it. So, okay.
The only thing I would add to that is, in the past where we have taken shortcuts or allowed people to not submit to us complete documentation, we've gotten into deep water very quickly. And so, even I feel the angst. I have seen the house. I know the pressures that they're under. But we still need to protect 15 historic overlay districts. And if we begin to compromise things,
that's right.
Then that spreads, throughout all 15 historic overlay districts. So it's hard, but I think that we need to stick to the process that is most stable and defensible.
Understood. No problem. I was not advocating the other, just brought it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We have no correspondence or announcements. We have no old business, but we do have some exciting new business. Denise.
So we do. We have a new ARB administrator who is starting on Monday. His name is Jason Aldridge. I sent out a little brief bio. I've met him a couple of times. He's terrific. Mr. Burns has met him. And I am really looking forward to putting down one of the jobs that I'm yes.
I just want to say for the record, I think he has a great name.
Jason, oh yeah, I know. I'm going to promise every time am I saying the wrong person? So he will be at the July meeting. Knock on wood, he'll be at the July meeting. But then, and I will be here as well. But then, if you all take an August break, that'll give him time to get up to speed and hopefully solo in September. Well, not solo, but yeah, with help in September.
Understood. Mr. Plumpy.
First of all, the workhouse air conditioning units on the roof and so forth, I just want to make sure that we're all aware that this will be a precedent for the property, so that they could be 12, 15 of these, 16 of these, because there's each unit, each building could have the same thing on this. If they want to go for a big HVAC, they can do it, I have no problem with that as long as it kind of blends. It seems like we're all around the table saying, hey, it makes sense, we're good, because we are setting precedent a little bit.
Sure, I think you also,
I'm not saying it's like,
right, well, I think you also consider the use in the other buildings too, that may not need that big of a unit as
you
well.
never know, they're going to have, if this is so good, they're going to have 6 of these places.
Yeah, maybe.
Granted, I hope it does, because it's very popular, so we want to make sure that it's a success.
We could put them in the boiler plant.
Dude, you're here, yeah, the old roof, right, gotcha. Then the other thing is, I was approached by Scott Klein, remember him, he's the gentleman that we went out over at the Historical Society, the Horticultural Society tour and so forth. He approached me today and I accepted to do some preliminary sketches and actually drawings for their entrance gate. They want to replace the gate, which is National Park Service, purview, as well as our, yeah, right there, river. Yeah. So I just want to let you know that when that comes in, you'll see our firm name. I will recuse myself or abstain from voting. I may or may not present because a lot of my people are remote, so I may have to present, but I will recuse myself from any kind of vote.
The gate, like when you first leave the road?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the only gate that there is.
Okay.
That's there. It's a wooden gate. It's falling apart. They want to do an electronic gate, FYI. So I asked Scott, is it okay if I presented this? Yes. I mean, and also to tell you guys tonight. So that's going to come after September. So yes.
In August?
In August. I said August is a good month. No.
That's why you wanted to know the filing deadline.
No. It's all good. And that's all I have to say.
All right, any other new business?
Oh, there's one more thing, sorry.
Yeah.
No, we're almost 10 o'clock, but we're not there yet. So I was going to say that our firm with S339 and I think 8 other firms in the DC metro area and outside the area are doing a renovation design competition for the Clement John Tree Park. And that was an RFP by the Park Service. Its submission date is end of June, remember that? Or not, but, I think they're trying to award it sometime this year to do the design. It's a conceptual design so it's no more than that, so it'll be interesting. That is I think it's right beside a historical district, or I can't remember.
Right?
Yeah, so,
I think it's Langley.
because there's the house there that's right in the background. So that may come to us. I hope we win it. Like everybody, we did a great design, so we'll see what happens. That's all. That's it.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry. So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned.
Okay. Happy Father's Day to everybody, and hope to see you at the car show, rain or shine, Sunday.
Look at you remembering that.
That's Sully.